Have you ever had one of those days where someone tries to mess with you, not knowing who they're dealing with? Well, that happened to me, except it was a lot more unexpected. It all started when a local Karen, let's just say, wasn't too happy about some minor issue at my property. Instead of just talking to me directly, she decided to take matters into her own hands. So, what did she do? She called code enforcement. Simple, right? Except here's the twist. I'm the one who runs the entire department. As soon as I got the call about this complaint, I couldn't help but chuckle. She had no idea that the very person she was trying to get in trouble with was the one who held all the cards. What happened next? Well, let's just say, it turned into a showdown I wasn't quite expecting. I could have made things difficult for her, but I wanted to see how far this would go. The suspense was building, and I could feel her frustration growing as the situation spiraled out of control. How will I handle this? Was she going to back down, or was she in for a bigger surprise than she bargained for? Stay tuned, because this story is just getting started. At first, I figured it was just another typical complaint. People call in about all sorts of things, from noisy neighbors to small property issues. But something about the tone in her voice made me curious. It was clear she wasn't just annoyed. She was determined to make sure I faced consequences for whatever she thought I'd done. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how bizarre the whole situation was. She didn't know who she was dealing with, and I was about to find out just how far she was willing to take this. I knew I could just call her back, explain the mix-up, and settle things quietly, but a part of me wanted to see if she would dig herself deeper into this mess. So I kept my cool, letting the complaint sit there as I gathered more details. Her frustration was starting to show. Every message seemed a little more heated, a little more demanding. She was convinced that I was the one who needed to be reprimanded, but little did she know, I was already a step ahead of her. The more I looked into the situation, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about a small issue on my property. There was something off about how she was handling it. Why was she so aggressive about it? What was really going on? My curiosity was getting the best of me. As the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. It wasn't just the complaint, it was how far she was pushing it. I had dealt with difficult residents before, but this was different. Her calls started escalating from petty complaints to accusations that were more personal, even questioning my character and motives. It wasn't just about the property anymore, it was about me, and I could tell she was trying to get under my skin. What struck me as odd was that she seemed so sure of herself. She knew exactly how to twist things, always presenting herself as the victim. It made me wonder if this was just about some misplaced anger, or if there was something else going on behind the scenes. Was there a deeper grudge? A past history I didn't know about? I couldn't help but dig deeper into her background. Meanwhile, I kept up the act. I didn't want her to realize I was the one pulling the strings. I figured if she thought she was dealing with some faceless bureaucrat, she might keep pushing, digging herself into a hole she wouldn't be able to get out of. But the longer this dragged on, the more unsettling it became. She started showing up at the office, acting as if she had a right to demand answers, her presence looming over the department. My team was starting to feel the pressure too. What was she after? What did she really want from me? Each new encounter seemed to raise more questions, and I couldn't help but feel that the real battle was only beginning. The situation was starting to spiral. I could feel it now, like an invisible pressure building in the air every time I walked into the office. The complaints were relentless, the phone calls never stopped, and her visits became more frequent. But what really got to me was how she was starting to influence others. She wasn't just trying to get me in trouble anymore, she was turning the community against me. The whispers were starting. Neighbors who had no idea what was really going on were beginning to question my leadership, wondering if I was the problem. I couldn't let that happen. I had worked too hard for this position, built too many positive relationships in the neighborhood. But no matter how much I tried to calm the waters, her actions were making it harder to stay ahead. It wasn't just a simple misunderstanding anymore. It felt like a war being waged behind the scenes, and I was at the center of it. I couldn't shake the thought that maybe this wasn't just a random nuisance. Maybe she was being fueled by something deeper. But what? The tension between us reached a breaking point when she demanded a personal meeting. She walked into my office, not as a concerned neighbor, but as if she was entitled to something, like she was ready to dictate the rules. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't backing down, and I realized in that moment that this was no longer just about some petty complaint. She wanted to win, no matter what it took, and I had no choice but to stand my ground. I didn't know what she had up her sleeve, but I could feel that this encounter would change everything. Would I be able to protect my reputation, my job, or would this be the moment she took me down? My heart raced, the tension unbearable as she stepped closer to the desk. Just as I braced myself for the confrontation, something unexpected happened. As she stepped closer, her expression shifted from the confident, demanding glare to something that almost seemed uncertain. I watched her hesitate for just a second, as if reconsidering her next move. It was the tiniest moment, but I caught it. For a split second, she looked almost like she was about to apologize, as though the weight of everything was suddenly hitting her. But before I could even process it, she whipped out a thick stack of papers, slamming them onto my desk. I was taken aback. My mind raced. What was this now? A new complaint? A legal threat? But as I glanced down, the words on the paper hit me like a freight train. It wasn't a complaint, it was a lawsuit. She was suing the department, and *me*. The papers detailed allegations I never saw coming: misuse of power, harassment, even accusations of corruption. I couldn't believe it. This was far beyond a petty neighborly dispute. She wasn't just trying to get me fired anymore. She was going for my career, my reputation, everything I had worked for. My heart dropped as I scanned through the accusations, each more outrageous than the last. Was this her revenge for a grievance that had never been addressed? Or was she simply using me as a pawn in a much bigger game? Suddenly, it all started to make sense. This wasn't just about a property issue anymore. She'd been playing the long game, and I'd been too focused on the details to see it. What did she stand to gain from all this? Was she working with someone else? Or was this all her own doing? The realization hit me hard. Things were about to get much, much worse, and the stakes had never been higher. I sat there frozen, staring at the stack of papers as the reality of the situation set in. A lawsuit. Against me. Against the department. The pressure felt like it was crushing me from all sides. For a moment, I didn't know what to say or do. She watched me, her eyes cold and unblinking. It was clear she wanted a reaction, but I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. There was no point in panicking now. I had dealt with tough situations before, but this felt different. This was personal. I had to think. Fast. I glanced at the documents again, looking for a loophole, a mistake. That's when I saw it, an inconsistency in the dates. A glaring error in the paperwork that didn't add up. It was small, but it was enough to cast doubt on the whole thing. I looked back up at her. "You're bluffing," I said, my voice steady but sharp. Her face tightened, but she didn't respond immediately. I could see her calculating her next move. That's when it hit me. She had no idea I was onto her. The mistake in the paperwork wasn't just a slip-up, it was a trap. A trap she had set for herself. "I've been looking into this," I said slowly, sliding the papers back toward her. "You've made a big mistake. You're not the only one with resources." Her expression faltered for the first time, and for a second, I thought she might crack. But then, just as quickly, her confidence returned. "You think that's going to stop me?" she sneered, standing up to leave. I knew I couldn't let it go just like that. But before I could say anything more, the door opened, and my assistant stepped in. She looked flustered, holding something in her hands. "You're going to want to see this," she said, handing me an envelope. I tore it open, and my heart skipped a beat. Inside was a copy of the same lawsuit, but this time, it had a stamp on it, an official stamp. It wasn't just a regular lawsuit. It was signed by someone I didn't expect, my own superior. The person who had been quietly watching this entire thing unfold from behind the scenes. That's when I realized the truth. I had been played, not just by her, but by someone much higher up the chain. The final twist: she wasn't working alone. She was just the pawn in a bigger game, one that had been set in motion long before I even knew it was happening. And as the realization sank in, I knew my battle wasn't over. It was only just beginning. As the shock of the situation settled in, I realized how deep the web of deceit really went. My superior, the one I had trusted, had been quietly pulling strings behind the scenes, using the Karen as a distraction in a much larger scheme. I wasn't just fighting for my job anymore. I was up against a system that was ready to take me down. But one thing I knew for sure: I wasn't going to go down without a fight. I gathered my team, the people who had supported me through it all, and together we started to piece everything together. We dug deeper into the records, uncovered more inconsistencies, and connected the dots that had been hidden from plain sight. Slowly but surely, the truth began to surface. My superior's plan wasn't just to ruin me, it was to cover up their own mismanagement of the department, and they'd use the Karen as a pawn to distract everyone. In the end, the truth came out, but not in the way they'd expected. I fought back with every ounce of determination I had, and with the support of my colleagues, we exposed the corruption within the system. The lawsuit was dismissed, and the Karen's involvement was revealed for what it truly was: a desperate attempt to manipulate the system. I learned a hard lesson: never underestimate the power of integrity, and always trust your instincts. This wasn't just a victory for me, it was a victory for doing the right thing, even when the odds were stacked against you.